One of the things I would really like to try to change in North Carolina is our educational system. Both of my sons go to a high school in downtown Raleigh, Raleigh Charter High School. Newsweek magazine rated it the 8th best public high school in the nation, in the United States. Not in North Carolina, but in the United States. It operates at about 2/3 the cost per student of a regular public high school. It doesn't have any cafeteria, it doesn't have any sports facilities, it doesn't have buses, it doesn't have lockers, and the students do their own janitorial work. The reason is that the state, in a very small way, made this charter school program available and said, if you have the initiative, if you have the responsibility to go out and create a new school in an overcrowded school district, which is where Wake County is badly overcrowded. Now there's 700 students every year who get a chance to go to a school that didn't exist before, that's one of the best high schools in the United States, because in a small way the state said, we're going to let you try to make some of your own choices. But there's a cap on charter schools. There's only 100 charter schools in the state of North Carolina. They're not evenly distributed across states. There's more than 20 just in Wake County alone.
Yeah, one thing that state government does, and government at any level does, that most private sector businesses aren't able to do, is they measure the inputs instead of the outputs. So taking a look at teachers, they do all of they do the what kind of degree you have and what kind of certification, what kind of licensing, and they make you get licensing. And a lot of other professions would like to do that as well, and they do, and they lobby for the ability to get certification and licensing from the state, so that they can exclude others from practicing what they do and raise their wages. It's kind of kind of a state type of union. You know, the state, we're a right to work state. You don't have to be a member of a union to be able to work in a shop, but in many things like teaching, you have to have the state certified license, and it works the same way. It raises wages for those people in there. And really what we should be measuring is how well the teachers actually teach. And education is a difficult one. It's kind of hard to see the effects of any specific teacher, but you can see the effects of schools. And that's part of the move towards the National Assessment of Educational Progress, the NAEP test that we have every couple of years now, and a number of other standardized tests, is to have some measure of how well teachers are doing. And that's part of the idea behind some of the state policies and some of the federal policies. But really, because there's not a real incentive for the government to measure those outcomes compared to what you would have if we had more charter schools or private schools or things like that, you know, where you could actually see outcomes, parents could act on those outcomes and start moving their children around. And we have the same problem in healthcare.
Homeschoolers in North Carolina are blessed because we have a fairly hands-off, as long as we commit to doing a certain number of days and to taking a test once a year in North Carolina to indicate that our kids are progressing, then we're pretty much have free reign on what we want to do with our children and how we think the best way to meet their needs can be met. As far as a larger question, I personally don't believe that a government that doesn't know me, my family, or our situation can be best suited to teach tell any family how to educate their children. And so I don't think they're very good, for instance, in the telling businesses how to run their businesses. Micromanaging, telling them how many widgets. We don't accept it in that arena because we know it's impossible for some nameless, faceless bureaucrat up in Washington to make those kind of decisions. I think it's fairly similar in the school setting, and because we don't honor that in the public school setting, there's so much micromanaging. My heart goes out to public school administrators and teachers because they have to deal with a lot more regulatory bureaucracy than I do that ties their hands in a number of ways. I feel blessed that I have to deal with that, but they certainly have to do, and they see the bad consequences of that each and every day. Even public education in the United States, the federal government used to not be involved at all, and it used to be purely a community matter in public education, or rather I should say government-run education. We would be well served if we went back to a much more local control type of model where communities who are closer to children and families can better determine what families and children need.
The Leandro case that was decided by Judge Howard Manning that said that the school systems in North Carolina were too highly inequitable. There was a kid named Leandro, and the last name was Leandro, and his mom actually followed the school bus every day because it broke down twice a week. So Leandro at that time was in the 5th grade. And he just graduated from graduate school, all the way through high school, all the way through college, all the way through graduate school. We still haven't addressed this problem because we're in love with the idea of government providing a monopoly education.
The fact that we only have 100 charter schools leads to and is a result of the fact that we don't like that the traditional public schools don't like competition, and because we only have 100 charter schools, and the traditional schools don't like competition, we're failing the kids.
You write out a contract, here are our objectives, here's the thing we're going to try to accomplish, here's what's going to pay teachers, and then the state goes over it and makes sure that the charter is coherent. The students have to pass the end-of-year test, so there's accountability, but they operate at half the cost of the regular schools. Some of them are bad. Some charter schools are bad. That's the thing about choice. Sometimes people make choices, they're going to be bad. But let me ask you this. Suppose I send my kids to a bad charter school. What do? I can always send them back to the public school that they came from. If I'm sending my kids to a bad public school, what are we going to do? Spend more money on it and say, you know, the government should fix this. Because we can't.